The man Jehovah Witnesses believe God chose to restore the true faith could not read the Bible in its original language. Under oath, a lawyer handed him the Greek New Testament and asked him to read it. He couldn't even name the letters. That matters because he had spent years teaching as if he had some special insight into the Bible's original language, and that claim didn't even survive a simple test. He also sold his own followers miracle wheat, claiming it would outgrow any wheat on earth. When the claims ended up in a libel trial, government experts tested it. It was worse than normal wheat. His marriage ended in a courtroom scandal, his own wife calling him cruel under oath. Years earlier, he and his wife had taken in a 19-year-old girl and raised her as their own. In that same trial, it came out that he had gotten inappropriately close with her. Charles Taze Russell was a deeply questionable man. Honestly, I think he was a terrible person through and through. But this video actually isn't about his terrible behavior or the sinful leaders who followed him. The video is coming though, so subscribe to catch it when I post it. This video is about something else. It's about the one claim that Jehovah Witnesses still make to this very day about what really happened in 1879, when Russell started the movement that would eventually become the Jehovah Witnesses. It's the one question I would ask them about their founding, and the one question that the Watchtower and Jehovah Witnesses have never been able to answer honestly. Was 1879 a restoration, or was it a new beginning? In other words, did Charles Taze Russell bring back something that already existed, or did he just start something brand new? Those two answers cannot both be true, and today I'm going to show you exactly why. Jehovah Witnesses do not believe they are a new religion. They believe actually that they're the old religion coming back. Here is how they tell the story. Jesus started the true faith in the first century. His apostles carried it forward. But after the apostles died, corruption crept in. False teachers took over, the truth got buried, and it stayed buried for more than 1,700 years. Then in 1879, a man named Charles Taze Russell started a magazine called Zion's Watchtower. According to the Watchtower, that was the moment the truth finally came back. And that magazine grew into a movement. That movement became the Watchtower organization. And that organization became Jehovah Witnesses. And this is not me putting words in their mouth. In Watchtower's own official historical book, the Jehovah Witnesses Proclaimers of God's Kingdom, they titled an entire chapter, The Great Apostasy Develops. In it, they actually described what happened after the apostles died as an apostasy that corrupted Christianity through its teaching from the inside. And on their own website, on the jw.org online library, they described the result in their own words. During a long period, quote, weed-like counterfeit Christians outnumbered loyal, wheat-like followers of Christ. And according to the Watchtower and the Jehovah Witnesses, those loyal wheat-like followers would be pushed to the margins, hidden, overgrown by the counterfeits, but never fully gone. They're trying to explain how 1,700 years could go by with the true faith so buried and overgrown that it was no longer a visible, identifiable church. And they're saying that believers corrupted it. It was something that came from within the church, which obviously made Charles Taze Russell a hero somewhat in their eyes. So according to the Watchtower's own published materials, everything between the apostles and Russell was overrun with counterfeit Christianity. Every church, every tradition, every believer for 1,700 years, they were all wrong. They were all corrupt. They were all counterfeit. Until one man with a magazine reportedly set the record straight. Here is what we actually know about that man. Before he became a Bible teacher, Russell worked in his father's men's clothing store in Pittsburgh. He sold men's clothing. He had no seminary training. He wasn't ordained. He had no formal training in scripture at all. In other words, he had no accountability to anybody outside of himself. And all that makes it not surprising what would happen when he was given a Greek New Testament in open court. He didn't know how to read it. So let's go back to the question of this video. Was 1879 a restoration of something that Jesus started, or was it the beginning of something that Russell started? This question is not about whether Russell was a good or a bad person. That's not important to the topic. It's actually about a whole foundation of what Jehovah Witnesses believe. If the Watchtower is a restoration, it carries the authority of the original faith that Jesus started. If it is a beginning, it is a new organization that one man invented in the 1800s. That is a huge difference. So let's take a look at what Jesus actually said about his church and how it relates to this topic. In Matthew 16:18, Jesus is speaking directly to his disciples, and he says this, I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Here is where the original language helps us understand it a little bit better. The word Jesus uses for church here in Koine Greek is ekklesia. It means the assembly, the people gathered together in his name, the group. And the phrase translated gates of hell is pelui hadu in Koine Greek. Word for word, that basically means the gates of Hades. In the world Jesus lived, Hades referred to the realm of the dead. So what Jesus is saying here is that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. He's not saying that the church will simply avoid some problems. He's making a much bigger, stronger promise than that. He's saying that death itself will not overtake the assembly. Think of it like battle imagery. The church going up against death. Stakes are high, tensions are high. Maybe people don't understand who's going to win, who's going to lose. Well, we know that the church will win. Death will never have the final say. In other words, the church isn't going to disappear. It's going to survive. Sure, there's going to be hardship, and church history has a lot of that hardship, and a lot of it comes from the outside. Some of it even comes from inside the church. But the church won't disappear. It won't go silent for 1700 years and become counterfeit Christianity. Now think about what the Watchtower story actually requires. Their story requires the church to effectively just be dead for 17 centuries, until 1879. That's a long, long time. And if you're trying to be logically consistent, you cannot hold both of these beliefs at the same time. You can't believe that Jesus promises death itself will not end the church, while at the same time believing the church itself will end the church. Namely, the counterfeit Christians putting pressure and overtaking the wheat-like followers of the church and burying them. You cannot hold those both beliefs at the same time. And when you bring this up with a Jehovah Witness, they're going to actually point to two passages. The first is actually a story Jesus tells in Matthew 13:24 to verse 30 about wheat and weeds growing in a field together. The second is a warning Paul gives in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 about people falling away from the faith. They use both of these to argue that Jesus and Paul both predicted that the church would go corrupt and dark. And here's the honest answer to that. They are right that both Paul and Jesus warned about corruption entering the church. That's true. No one is arguing that. If you've ever been a Christian for anything more than a weekend, you've seen that firsthand. Working in churches over the years, I've seen some shameful things. I've seen bookkeepers steal money from the church. I've even seen a pastor over the marriage ministry get caught cheating on his wife. All shameful, all terrible, all things that nobody is arguing. Corruption will happen. But there is a difference between corruption entering the church and the church essentially vanishing from sight. Those are two very different things, and neither passage actually says the church will go essentially quiet. And this is where one Greek word matters. The word Paul uses in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 is apostasia. It means a falling away. It describes people drifting, people leaving, but not the institution collapsing, and definitely not the church ceasing to exist. Paul is warning that some people will fall away from the faith. He's not saying that the church itself is going to be disappearing. That is a distinction that is a huge deal in this conversation. And the Watchtower is counting on you not knowing it. And now let's look at the parable of the sower in Matthew 13. Jesus describes a field where good wheat and weeds grow together. He says, leave them alone until the harvest. At the very end of time, he will send his angels to separate them. Notice what Jesus never says. He never says that wheat disappears. He never says that the field goes dark for 17 centuries. He actually just says that the wheat and the weeds grow side by side all the way to the very end. And there's good conditions and bad conditions. And until the end, he himself will be doing the separating. That story does not support the Watchtower's reading. It works directly against it. Which brings us back to the same question. If Jesus promised that his church would survive death itself, and if the Greek word for apostasy describes individuals falling away rather than the church collapsing, then the church did not go away. And if the church didn't vanish, 1879 was not a restoration. It was something else. So what does this mean? Well, if 1879 was a restoration, the Watchtower needs to answer a straightforward question. What exactly are they restoring, and where did it go? They cannot answer that from the Bible, because as we have gone through, the Bible doesn't say that the church disappeared. It talked about corruption coming, and we've all experienced corruption in our lives in the church if you've been there for long enough. But that's not it vanishing. That's not the church going away entirely. The Greek doesn't say it, Jesus doesn't say it, Paul doesn't say it, and history itself doesn't say it either. Jaroslav Pelikan was one of the most respected church historians of the 20th century. He was not writing apologetics. He was a historian writing for other historians. He spent his entire career documenting the history of Christian belief and practice. That work became a 5-volume series called The Christian Tradition, published by the University of the Chicago Press. What Pelikan documented was not a straight line. Christianity is complicated. There were arguments, councils, splits, and serious failures. Nobody is pretending otherwise. But Christianity never went away. It never vanished. Instead, there was always a constant heartbeat of the church, even against opportunities where it really felt like maybe Christianity could go away. The church, through the work of the Holy Spirit, always pressed on, always pressed forward, always was there. And there was 17 centuries of continuous Christian belief and practice, documented by a credentialed historian with no apologetic agenda. That is a serious problem for the story that requires 17 centuries of total darkness, of total silence. And here's what gives it away. One word: restore. You can't restore something that was never gone. So either the wheat survived, just like Jesus promised, and Russell restored nothing because nothing was lost, or the true faith really did die out, and those hidden faithful ones they can't name, can't point to, can't identify were never actually there. Their own answer traps them. You don't need a restoration unless something actually died. And this is where a Jehovah Witness will say that they actually don't believe that the church ever completely vanished. I mentioned this rebuttal in passing before in this video, but let me address it directly right here. The best answer to why the church never really completely vanished in their eyes is that the wheat, that small group of true believers, quietly kept the faith alive the whole time. It's their strongest argument, but it breaks in three places. First, they can't identify the faithful ones, the anointed quote-unquote wheat. They'll sometimes point to a few people who did something that they liked, but they admit in their own book, Pure Worship of Jehovah Restored at Last, that it was, quote, impossible to distinguish wheat from weeds, genuine anointed Christians from imposters. Their words, not mine. So by their own account, this rescue group left no trace you can verify. You can't point to it, you can't find it, you can't tell it apart from the fakes. And a church that nobody can point to isn't a surviving church. It's an argument that's falling apart. And second, let's look at what they do with that group that they supposedly believe were still genuine anointed Christians. They throw out nearly all the main teachings of that era. They reject the Trinity, the immortal soul, hellfire, and so on. And they even call the big organized churches all false churches. So even if a few faithful people were hiding somewhere, the real teachings were, by their own account, lost. You can't say that the faith survived while rejecting almost everything that faith believed. And third, here's the part that they can't escape. The Bible itself was copied and handed down through these same 1700 years by the very Christians they call apostate. And don't take that survival of those texts for granted. Most ancient writings simply just didn't make it. Sophocles, one of the greatest playwrights of ancient Greece, wrote over 120 plays. Only 7 survived. Livy, the great Roman historian, wrote 142 books on the history of Rome. We have about 35. Some ancient authors are gone entirely. They survive only when a living community keeps hand copying them generation after generation. And God's word didn't just barely get by. The New Testament alone survives in more than 5,800 Greek manuscripts, and over 24,000 when you count all languages. Nothing else from antiquity comes even remotely close to this. The Bible could have burned away like those lost works, but instead, that church copied it more than anything else in history. And here's the thing, copying it and defending it, that's not something a machine does. That's the work of a living, believing community in every generation. And a Jehovah Witness would likely say that the text got corrupted along the way, that translators added things or dropped God's name. But that objection only proves my point. You can't say a text was changed unless it survived for you to check it. Either way, if God preserved his word through that church for 17 centuries, then the church was not dead. The book that the Jehovah Witnesses distorted to get to the New World Translation is evidence against their own argument. And the Bible makes it even harder for them. Jesus never promised a hidden rumor of a church, a few nameless souls holding secret beliefs in the shadows. No, he promised something alive and visible, a church that gathers, that teaches, that holds up the truth out in the open in every generation. A remnant that nobody can see, that taught nothing anyone remembers, isn't a church that Jesus described. Now that we settled that, let's circle back to the question of the video. 1879 was obviously not a restoration. It was a beginning. The claim that Jehovah Witnesses love to make, namely that Jesus Christ is the founder of their religion, is not true. In fact, it was something started by a man in Pittsburgh. A new organization, a new founder, a new set of teachings, built by one man who answered to nobody. What happened in 1879 wasn't Christianity being restored or coming back, but instead it was something coming back that never had existed before. And if 1879 was actually a new beginning, it changes everything about where the Watchtower's authority actually comes from. And what we don't see from the Jehovah Witness history is any tracing of that going back to the apostles. But instead, that authority shows up with Russell himself in 1879. and the sinful men who kept on building on the things that Russell was doing. And when you have this conversation with a Jehovah Witness about whether 1879 was a restoration or was it a new beginning, make sure that you are listening to the Jehovah Witness. Let them finish their thought. Oftentimes they think that we're not going to engage with them, we're not going to listen, but try to break that chain and listen to them. And when you let them finish talking and you likely have a conversation about their claims that the church went silent for 1700 years, yet there was this small remnant somewhere that they can't show, or anything identifiable about that group, you can ask this question. If the true faith never disappeared, then what was 1879? The claim that Charles Taze Russell restored something that was lost doesn't hold up when you have these conversations with them. I think that's where the real conversation begins. You can talk to them about Russell taking on the title of pastor where he didn't earn that title in any capacity. He was saying outlandish things and claiming divine authority to do it. And you find this to be true today with the governing body and the Watchtower organization. Human leadership claiming divine authority, yet no biblical basis for those claims. Jesus said that the gates of hell would not prevail against his church. The Greek word behind that phrase means death itself, not just corruption like the Watchtower likes to say, not just hard times, but death. Either Jesus meant that promise or he didn't. And if he meant it, the church didn't essentially vanish for 1700 years. It wasn't buried in the grave because Jesus proclaimed it would never be in the grave. And if the church never vanished or was buried, then 1879 was not a restoration. It wasn't Christianity being restored and coming back. It was something new, built by one man with no training, no credibility, no credentials, in Pennsylvania in the 1800s. That is the question I think is the best one to ask about Charles Taze Russell, the founder. Was it a restoration or was it a beginning? The Watchtower needs the first answer to be true, but the evidence keeps pointing to the second. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you're interested in more videos like this, please subscribe. Love to hear more of your thoughts down below. And if you have any video suggestions, just in general for this channel or for this series about one question, please let me know. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts and getting ideas from the comment section. But that's it. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.